It's that time of the week again, folks. This is me, your host, Richard McColl. Yes, I'm back here with the Colombia Calling podcast. It was 2 weeks away at sea and some other stuff going on, since there were no new episodes for a couple of weeks. But now we are back. We've got Lorna on the line from Tabio. Lorna's an old friend, one of the, I would say, the originals in our wave of immigrants from England to Colombia. And I'll jump into a bit of her background in a second. But first and foremost, Lorna, welcome back.
Thank you so much, Richard. It's great to be here. Thank you for
inviting. This is episode 593. 93s. We're closing in on 600. You were last on this show, and I looked it up, February the 7th, 2017. So a good 8 years ago.
I thought it was longer than that, so it was 8 years.
Yeah, and it was the Dating in Colombia episode, which still today pulls in listeners. So there you go. Your advice and experiences still, let's say that they still have some resonance throughout the listeners. So there you go. Well done.
Good or not?
Well, I don't know. I mean, It was. I haven't listened back to it since, but I know it was a popular one, and I know it was very personal. You really did put it out there. One thing that was raised, and I've not forgotten. Someone raised it to me, and I should have probably told it. That in all this dating chat, there was never a discussion of love, which I found very interesting, because someone actually came back and said, I hadn't thought about it, because you were living in, let's say, up towards Cedritos or somewhere at that time. I can't remember.
I think so.
Morato? No.
No, somewhere. It was in Cedritos. It was close to Cedritos, yeah.
Yeah, so I remember that. So now, I mean, obviously, long time has passed. You're up in Tabio. Tabio is just outside of Bogotá. Rural, a lot of second homes out there for Bogotanos, but beautiful. And I guess it was that many years ago when we came out and saw the home you bought, which is absolutely spectacular. But since then, you've really evolved. You've got yurts on the property. Well, I mean, tell us a bit more about what happened. So between 2017, when you were still in Bogotá, and today.
Okay. Well, I think it was 2018, maybe. Yes, I think 2018. I wanted to give, because, I mean, I lived with my son in Cedritos, as you said, and I wanted us to be able to have a different kind of life. I mean, I love Bogotá, and I kind of like the chaos. But I mean, my son, he was only 5 at that time, and he was having to wake up in the morning at, let's say, 4 o'clock to get to school for 8 o'clock, and spending hours in traffic. I was working also from 6 in the morning till sometimes 8 at night, and it was a crazy kind of life. And I wanted to have something that had a different kind of rhythm, and something that offered different opportunities. And I wanted my son to be able to also experience something different than being in Bogotá. So I got the opportunity to look for a project. And when I was looking, I knew I wanted to be close to Bogotá still, because obviously it's I enjoy Bogotá. It's a useful place to live close to. I have lots of friends in Bogotá, but also I had in mind something to do with tourism, and something to do with perhaps some potential to change the focus of life from working for other people to try to be more independent and more self-sufficient. And I also think I wanted to be a good example for my son as well. To show that, you can kind of take something and take something that you're dreaming about and try and make it into a reality. So I started to look, and Tabio was a place I'd visited before, not so many times, but I had visited it. And I knew that it was accessible. I knew that we didn't have a car, so I knew it was somewhere that had transport routes, and, had potential, because it obviously has rural aspects, but also it's not, kind of on a mountain, thousands of miles away from anywhere. I found the Vinca, and it already had kind of the shell of a cabin there, although it had no electricity, no water, no real structure. It was just the outside shell. And so, I mean, we started to live here. We had the house, lots of space outside, and just the shell of the cabin. So then it was I always think in life, things happen. And sometimes you don't know why, but, everything kind of leads to a point. And it had happened that I'd lost my bank card. So I had to go to the bank. I know, and in Colombia, that's kind of difficult, right? It's not just as easy as kind of, ringing up and another one arrives. So at that time, especially, that I had to go to the bank, and they said to me when I was at the bank, "Do you know that you could be eligible to get a loan?" And so I said, "Well, okay." Because I was still obviously working in Bogotá. So I was still getting up here at, 5 a.m, taking the bus to Bogotá and then coming back. But they said, "Oh, you can have a loan." And so I thought, well, this is the opportunity maybe to renovate the cabin. And this is before COVID, before all of those things. I managed to get a loan. And I had somebody that I trust that, works now on the finca. And he came and we decided, I already had in mind what I wanted to do with the cabin. And he decided to.
Yep, we're here.
Okay, sorry, I thought the internet had gone, but it's okay. So he came to help, and we renovated the cabin. And I started. I think I opened with a sofa and a bed, and there was nothing else. And then the pandemic started. So we opened with a sofa and a bed. I had no money for furniture, no money for anything else. So to start with, when I started with the cabin, because I put it at a really low price because I thought, well, I don't really know anything about this kind of thing. I was winging it basically. There wasn't a lot of tourism in Tabio. So I put the prices really low, and the first clientele were like kind of people who were looking for motels. Do you know what I mean? So we get these people who would just turn up and say, "Oh, I'm just coming for the day with my wife," and I was really naive, and I was like, "Oh, this is kind of weird." And then it became apparent that obviously that wasn't the situation. So obviously the more money that I brought into the cabin, and I was still working at the same time as well in Bogota, I was able to make adjustments and, organize pricing structure, and actually found out a little bit more about how to do it. I think I've always had kind of a life of, kind of learning how to do things while I'm doing it. Do you know what I mean? I don't think it was ever, I don't think I ever really kind of researched it.
It's a kind of trial and error thing, though. We all go through that. At the beginning of the Casa Maria, we had the people turning up to say, "Oh, yeah, just for the ratico." Yeah, and then, but we would see them straight off. The girl would be seated far away, like outside by the river, and then the guy would come in and say, "Listen, but how much for the ratico?" And so, in order to dissuade them, I would price it too high, and then you'd see the boy go back to the girl, and you could kind of tell what the conversation was going on. Is a "don't you think I'm worth it" type of conversation. But that's really funny about the motels. How long did it take for you to sort of get the price model out there to therefore cut off the sort of motel clientele?
To cut that off, probably, let's say maybe 5-6 months, something like that.
Quite some time.
Yeah, because I was adjusting prices, but then I was also, as I said, I started with a sofa and a bed. So, trying to, modify things, then thinking about, the space outside. I had no preparation whatsoever. It wasn't something that I'd really thought about properly. And plus I was working as well. So I was like, kind of trying to do both things. And in a weird way, it was kind of the pandemic that saved that. And I know that's not the case for a lot of businesses, but I was really lucky because at the start of the pandemic, or the weekend that everything closed in Colombia, I had some guests in the cabin who were also fitted kind of a weird motel profile. I don't know. It was a bit of an odd situation. But the man said to me, "Oh, I think everything's going to close. I'd like to stay longer. My partner, whoever she was, is going back to wherever Bogota, maybe it was, I don't know. But I'd like to stay because I think Bogota is going to get really complicated." And I think this situation is going to be complicated. So I'd like to stay if that's okay, and I'll pay you. So I said, okay, cool.
Yeah.
And I mean, at that point, I didn't even have internet in the cabin. There was no internet or anything. So I said, okay, well, that's okay. Let's agree a price. You can use the internet in the house here, and let's see what we can do. So he stayed probably for about 2 months, something like that. And I think that was the point as well when I started to offer food, because I have a menu of because my son and I are mainly plant based, so I mean, we offer a menu of like pizzas and breakfast and things like that. And it was at that point that I started, because there's no kitchen in the cabin, so it's self-contained, but there's no kitchen facilities because it's only a small space. So it was at that point that I started to grow things with offering food, and so that was kind of the instigator for that. And then he left, and then somebody contacted me, a student who was a psychiatric student, and she was doing her teaching practice here in Tabio for 3 or 4 months, and her parents really wanted her to not to be traveling all the time, because obviously the situation was complicated. And so they said to me, whatever the price, we'd like her to come and stay there with you. We'll pay for all the food, all the meals, everything. And I mean, it was too good an offer to refuse. So then the cabin was full. It was a lot of work because I was teaching remotely from home and also obviously cooking all the time for her as well. But I mean, the money that I made from that was the money that finished the cabin. And that was the point where things really started to take up, because before that, it was nice, but I mean, it was nothing, nothing as it is now. So yeah, that was the kind of the point where things kind of turned around weirdly, because as I said, I know that's not the story for a lot of businesses in the pandemic.
This is interesting. So you were able to furnish it, put in I guess it had running water prior to that, but you furnished it, got internet in there, and now. So how many of these cabins or yurts do you now have?
Well, the cabin, which is the original cabin.
The original.
And then during the pandemic, I managed to construct, like say 2021, 2022, to construct 2 yurts, which are round structures which are originate in Mongolia, obviously, so they're not Latin American. But I really I'd looked at, kind of Mallorcas and more traditional roundhouse Colombian structures, but I wanted something perhaps a little bit different, that was maybe just a different kind of offer, something that, still had that kind of an authentic structure, an authentic form, but just that might be a little bit different than, offers in other places. And so I constructed, with the help of mingers and all those kinds of things, the yurt that's made mainly of clay, of earth. So it's a traditional structure, but the walls are made from earth. And then at the same time, I had friends who I'd rented a piece of the land to, and they were building a similar structure, which is purely by coincidence, and we hadn't coordinated it, made mainly from canvas and a kind of a bamboo structure. So now I have 3, and that's enough.
That's plenty. I'm just, as someone who's done restorations and well, I mean, colonial, but I know about mud because, the original colonial walls and so on. I can see all sorts of challenges. And I just want to ask you about, because, this is Bogota, when you're in Tabio, it rains a fair amount in this area. what did you do for roofing? Because, I mean, I have issues on the coast when it's a proper rainfall, because the rain is so strong that it sort of lifts up some of the colonial tiles and finds a way through. What have you done? Because this is a challenging thing.
Well, the roof that is on the yurt that's made from earth and clay is made from thick canvas, thick tarpaulin canvas. I think tarpaulin or canvas. Anyway, it's from very thick material that you would use probably for the truck coverings. That you quite often see. So it's thick and it's durable. But I mean, it was such a massive learning process because I'd worked, doing projects and things. When I lived in the UK, I'd worked with different projects, renovating houses and things like that, and the place that I'd lived in. But I'd never done that before, and especially, in a different country with different things, with different materials. And so, I mean, had I thought it through properly and, in hindsight, probably I would have done things, well, I would have done things differently, but life's a process. So it's a thick tarpaulin roof. And that was one of the first things that was made to try, as you said, because it rained so much, to try and keep the rest of the structure dry underneath. Because the idea was, the people who helped me to do it and the people who, were kind of running the project said, it's only going to take like 4 months. And it took probably a year and 3 months, something like that. I mean, that's how long it was. So the roof went on the yurt first, and then it became apparent that wasn't the best idea because they got to do other things. So then it came off the yurt, and then it went back on, and then it came up. And if you know anything about that kind of tarpaulin material, the more that you manipulate it, and obviously it has to be stretched, all of the joints became very unstable. So the last time that we put it back on, it was just hitting the rainy season. And it was like a waterfall. I went down one night because the person who was running the project for me also told me once he was halfway through the project that he had another project in Rosal, which is, the other side of the mountain. So, he'd left 2 people here to help me, and he wasn't here. And as we know with these things, that's never a good situation. So I knew that it was leaking, and I called him one night, and he came and he said, it's just condensation. And it was like a waterfall coming through the roof. And obviously this was affecting the clay. It was washing the clay off. It was just a nightmare. And so then I with the help of them, took the roof off, took it to Bogotá to be vulcanized. I think the word's vulcanized, where they reseal all the joints with heat. Bought it back from Bogotá. We're talking now, the budget was going over and over and over, obviously, because I'd got the budget organized and it was just crazy. Put it back on and it hadn't worked. So then the only solution that I could think of that is still there now, which has worked, was to take it off again by, thick plastic, really thick plastic. And with the help of 2 friends, the ones who were constructing the other yurt, they helped me to put the plastic underneath so that it's got a layer of nice cotton that you can see underneath, so it all looks nice and authentic and natural. But under that there's insulation, then there's plastic, and then there's the roof. And then we had to kind of extend some of the plastic out because it was kind of going and then dripping back in. It was a nightmare. That's resolving that situation just took months and months and months, and massive amounts of budget. The other yurt has the people that built it decided for personal reasons they didn't want to continue with it, so I bought it from them. And when I bought it, that also had massive problems with the roof, and I discovered that one weekend when there were guests that were about to arrive, and it was raining, and when we have tropical storms, and there was water coming through the roof, and oh my God, there are going to be guests here in like 20 minutes, and there's water pouring through the roof. And I just managed to kind of bodge it, and so it fixed. But then I called somebody and I said, we're going to have to replace all of it. So we had to take it all off. It couldn't be fixed because it was just a canvas roof again. and it had just been stretched, and it wasn't a very good quality. So it all had to be replaced. The walls had to be reinforced. The bottom had to be reinforced, and then now it's like a kind of felt asphalt, maybe something like that. It's a roof, but so it's good. I mean, it's guaranteed and it's good. But it was just. I mean, you can never. You kind of have these ideas. I do. You have ideas, and you think, oh, this is going to be amazing, and it's going to be great, and obviously, something always goes wrong, and you just have to adapt.
Do you think you and I have been affected by all of those TV shows back in the 90s in the UK of like people, I don't know what it's called, like I can't remember what they're called, but giving everything up to move overseas and open like a guest house or something. There were always a few, weren't there?
Yeah, I remember.
What were they called again? Something abroad, or I don't remember.
I don't remember, but I know the ones that you.
Yeah, I was once contacted by them. They
really?
wanted to do a show, but Monpos was too far, so they ended up doing it in Medellin or somewhere. But they told me, I said, but the house is restored. No, don't worry, we'll take everything out. We've got we'll take photos and we'll put them all back in afterwards. So that's how they did it. It was a bit of a crack, but I think we must have been affected by that. So I just want to put that out there. It's like they said it would be 3 or 4 months, and then it was like 15 months later. I can only imagine your brain cells burning up, the neurons and stuff, the stress involved, guests arriving. We've both been there in that one. But there's some nice things. Obviously, the learning experience. Obviously, you become part of the community because you probably employed everyone there at some point. You've moved to the countryside for your kids, and I think perhaps you grew up in rural England as well, so you're sort of wanting that kind of experience. So these are all positive things. So hang on a second. So we can find your yurts on Airbnb or directly. It's Tuwa Shima is the name?
Yes. Tuwa Shima. It's 2 words.
Tuwa Shima.
Yes.
Tuwa Shima.
Exactly.
And what does that mean?
It means Mother Earth. So it's from a North American native tongue, Hopi, and it means Mother Earth.
All right. I had no idea. I should have looked that up. And that's really cool. So are you, with that in mind, I suppose that you're bringing in people who want to be connected more to their environment there, because Tabio's, close to Tenjo, and these areas are known for their interesting energies. Perhaps you could tell us a little bit about this.
Okay. Well, yes. I mean, obviously the profiles of guests, they're different, but we do get guests here who maybe are interested. We're right in front. We have a good view from the finca of La Peña de Huayca, which is in the Muisca. The Muiscas thought it meant the Porta de los Dioses, the gateway to the gods. And it was supposed to be, it's the highest mountain, I think, in Cundinamarca. So it's certainly the highest along this stretch of mountains here, the Cordillera of these mountains. So, the Muiscas believe that the gateway into to their ancestors was much thinner there because of the height. So that has that spiritual connection, but also there being reported sightings of UFOs and different phenomena in these regions. I've had contacts with people who've brought people in from the USA, from Canada, from Europe, who've specifically gone and tried to investigate, deep into those mountains because there are caves. The finca is on the entrance to the mountains here are called Tequisa. So there are there's a valley and then the 2 lines of mountains. There's Tequisa and then there's Cerros de Huayca in front, which is where the La Peña de Huayca is. And these were a big gateway originally from Zipaquirá to Chía. So that was from the sun god to the moon god, because the Muiscas lived in these mountains. So if you explore these mountains, people have found, the kind of the basins where they would have used for ceremonies and for bathing and for different objects that were buried and, different ceremonial positions. Kisa then goes into Makoi, which then goes to Tabio. So, there's all different kinds of, kind of spiritual connotations. And we get a lot of visitors who are very interested in that. And in Tengho, now there's a museum for UFOs and unidentified phenomena. There's a lot of connections in Tabio that are now emerging as it becomes more kind of touristically focused.
Yeah, well, I'm glad you mentioned that, because I dragged my family to it, the Ufology Museum, because we were out. It was some integration lunch for Francis, my youngest son, for his class. And driving out, so I guess I was going via Suwa Choke and out somewhere like that, and I saw this billboard for it. I'm like, I don't know when we're coming out here again. So we went to lunch, and we had all the fun and stuff. And I guess it was like a play area for children. And the parents are like, "Hang on a second, you leaving?" You're like, "Yeah, we're leaving early." "Why are you leaving early?" And it's like, "Well, because I'm going to the UFO museum and I'm taking my family." And we were the weird ones there. It was like, "Really? You're going to?" I was like, "Absolutely." And it was fascinating. And we took photos of the Peña de Huayca, and then as we opened, sort of expanded them and enlarged them to look at it, there were little dots up there and stuff, which could have been a lot of things. But the people involved in the museum were very informed and very interesting. And I would, if you've got any interest in this kind of I don't know, otherworldly experience, go. I mean, so. Have you felt energies there on your little finca, on your farm there? Do you know, is there something special that you can feel?
Yeah, for me, yes. I think, but I mean, I believe I think the energies anyway. I mean, I believe in that, and energies with spaces and energies with people. And yes, and other people have said so too. That it's. I think you can feel it. I've seen with La Peña de Huayca, I've seen certain things that could be something different. Obviously, it depends on what your beliefs are, but I think it's a special place, and I think you've had so much history, and there's so many different things that have happened, in these mountains, and I think echoes of that are always echoes of those energies. They're always there. So yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
There's no change there.
Well, I tend to believe in the weight of history and emotion on places. And of course, if there's original communities have considered these places and used them as sacred, then something remains. I was in this past summer, I went to the Isle of Man, which is known for a lot of like Neolithic and ancient stones. Of course, I dragged my family up a hill to go and look at some. And the only photos that didn't come out were the ones that I took of the ancient stones. They're
Oh, really?
on my phone, full battery, everything, ones of the views of the island, views of the ocean, found friends and so on. But the ones that didn't, it just turned up black, were the ones of the stones. So, it makes you think. You start, but it's a positive feeling, obviously, on your finca. People feel comforted, and don't tell me otherwise, because we don't. But people, I mean, you're getting these people out there, which I think is this is great news, and I'm, because you're in a catchment area for Bogotá. Do you have repeat clients?
Yeah.
That's cool.
I have repeat clients. I have a lot of clients who do come from Bogotá. And also clients that could come from different parts of Colombia, and also a growing amount of international clients as well, especially coming up to these times of year when people come, visiting their families or have got a longer vacation, and then repeating clients. Yes, I've got a core number of clients as well who do come back, maybe 2 or 3 times a year, which is also great.
That's nice. And so, do you still cook for your clientele? Then are you still offering food?
Yeah.
Oh, Jesus!
But not all the time. I mean, we have a menu, and it's a vegan and vegetarian menu, and we offer breakfast, and we also offer dinner, which could be usually pizzas or pasta, something like that. And it's a set, we have set options, because when I first started, it was kind of winging it, as I said, and it was kind of, well, what have we got in the cupboard? This is what I can cook. So it was obviously then kind of complicated, because I never in my whole life cooked for, let's say, a large amount of people. Let's say, if we've got all the spaces full, it could be up to 10 people, and I'd never done that in my life before, trying to balance how to do that, and how to make sure things are ready on time, and how to do things. And but it's still a learning process. I mean, things like presentation and things you learn all the time, and there are things that sometimes are not obvious, and then people come in and say, oh, well, maybe you could change this, or maybe you could do that, and you think, oh yeah, and that's always great. So yeah, it's something I still do, but it's more structured now.
Yeah. Well, there are restaurants down the hill. I remember it's not too far away. Walking distance, there are places too. So people aren't captive clientele. But of course, if you want to stay on the finca and stay in the yurt of an evening, then that sounds like a great opportunity. And I mean, we haven't spoken in a long time, and I'm thinking, you've been here now, what's this month, December, 18 years. It's a long time from teaching English in those corporate. I think it was a corporate place. We don't need to manage it, but I remember it was on like the 45 or somewhere like that. Teaching English in that area to now, running what I would consider as an earthy or spiritual retreat area out in Tabio. What progress, Lorna! We should be celebrating this. It's amazing, isn't it? You must feel. Do you get moments that you reflect and go, "Wow, this is great"?
Sometimes, yeah. No, I mean, I do, and I think, when I look at the journey, yes, because I think that, I think it's important. I've always believed in kind of pushing myself out of my comfort zone, and I think if you do dream something, you want to do it, and you're prepared to work at it, I think you can do it. I've never really let those things stop me. And I think, I do think it's been an achievement, but I also think, I've not done this by myself. I mean, I've got a lot of people who've helped me, a lot of people who supported me, a lot of people who, when I thought it was all going to go horribly wrong, told me that it wasn't, and that's, equally as important. And I think it's, when you see the growth maybe in yourself as well. And I think it's about that, about, I've never really wanted to just stand still. I always think, I remember when I was at university and somebody said to me, when I'm in bed at some point in life, and I'm old and I can't do anything else, I want to look back on life and think, well, I lived it and I did things, and it was never for me the kind of, I'm going to be in one place forever, working 9 to 5 and, that kind of thing. I'm not criticizing that. That's perfectly fine. That's your place in life, but that was never for me. So yes, I think so. And I think, it's exciting. And so you never know the possibilities for the future when you've lived. And you must feel the same, I think, right?
Well, I reflect on occasions, and I reflect when in the two on both extremes. When things go incredibly well, I reflect and think, wow, thank you to everyone, and when things go incredibly badly, obviously you reflect as did I make a wrong turn in the road somewhere? But then again, thankful for the support network who, it's not, like yourself, not alone in this. There's a huge amount of people who have vested their time and emotion, I would say, into these things, and friendship and beyond. So, despite the challenges, despite the negatives, at the end, I think back and, I become quite reflective. I had my godfather passed a few weeks ago, who was like, very, very close to him. And I was just listening to the eulogy, and, he was a man who didn't fuss over anything. And yet the life lived was spectacular. Things that we didn't know. And so I think if you can be remembered not as someone who's like, like a great achiever, but with great empathy by those who know you, it makes a difference, doesn't it? And so I just think it's amazing. And you started teaching back in the day, but you're still teaching, I think, as well. So you're still out there. You're not like, let's say, a hermit on a hill. You're still out there, and you're doing something it's quite selfless. It's called English Without Borders.
Yeah, I work for it's part of an agreement with the British Council and local governments in Colombia, and it's called English Without Borders, and they're English programs so that people who have the need can access virtual English teaching free with a teacher. Obviously, it's not just a pre-recorded class. And they are able to have 14 weeks or 16 weeks or 6 months, however long the courses are, of English teaching. So we do different programs. We work, it's a self-employed basis, and we work on different contracts. So with teachers in Barranquilla, with school children in Bogotá, with professionals in Bogotá. And as I said, with different parts of the population who maybe wouldn't have the chance to have access to English teaching, so that they have the opportunity to learn in an inclusive environment, a safe environment, and to help them with their career prospects and life prospects, or to make different connections, to learn different cultural things. So it's a really interesting program.
That's great.
So yeah, I enjoy that a lot, and I love teaching, so it's nice to have that connection.
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, also I wanted to thank you before I forget, is that you put me in touch with Heather Luna and Victoria, the Tabio Rusa. Heather, who's sort of creating her own sort of conflict resolution project, and Victoria, the Tabio Rusa, who does all sorts of different language classes online from out there in Tabio. So look them up too. But also, thank you for putting me. It sounds like you've got a nice community out there of people, like-minded people.
Yeah, I have. When I first started to live in Tabio, I didn't really think how different life would be in a small town compared to Bogotá, because I loved Bogotá. And I have lots of friends there, and it was always very nice. Living here has been completely different. We go to the town, everybody knows us. We're the gringos in Tabio, even though we're not, but everybody knows us. And we built a nice community of people, like-minded people, obviously people who also have very different kinds of trains of thought, but it's a different pace of life. And I think maybe this is Colombian people generally in my experience, but people are interested, and okay, so why are you here? What are you doing? Why is this? And it's nice, I think that kind of curiosity. So yeah, I have a really nice community. I have friends who, also have permaculture projects here in Tabio, friends who are weavers, friends who are artists, friends who work with local crafts, who I've also tried to, incorporate into the project here. So, for example, the textiles in the yurts and the cabin are made by local weavers. My friend has a project called Pa la Huerta, which is also in Tabio, and we try and do kind of visits there, and so that people can see her project, and if people want flowers and things, they can buy them from there. I have friends who do guided walks in the mountains, who we kind of try and do different projects with, so that everybody benefits, right? Everybody wins, and that's the idea. So that it's to build up a local body of people. Something I'm working on at the moment is like a local directory here, so that local people who we recommend, for taxi services, for restaurants, textiles, for guided walks, they always have a reference of where they can go. The tourists can come here, and if I want to go walk in the mountains, I can go with somebody safe and trustworthy who's going to tell me interesting things. maybe they're going to give me a little bit extra information, things like that. And I think it's that kind of building confidence as well, because obviously tourism is still emerging in Colombia and here as well. And, even though we try and get away from that, I suppose, horrible and outdated reputation that Colombia fits a certain mold, people do still come with preconceptions. So it's nice to give people the confidence of, okay, so this is where we are, this is Tabio. And these are all people who work hard to make it a proactive and beautiful place. And these are people who are talented, and, we can promote between us.
You are now the voice piece, the spokesperson for Tabio. There we go. Well, we bring this. It's a very nice and positive, upbeat episode, and I just thought, you've touched on it as we walked through and talked over these things, but what would you, there are a lot of people, I occasionally scroll through sort of expat forums or immigrant forums or whatever on Facebook, and a lot of people looking at moving or being location independent or doing something, not dissimilar to what you or I have done. What kind of advice would you perhaps give anyone considering moving out, maybe to rural Colombia or just to Colombia in general? I mean, what would you say to them? Because for me, it's like that Colombians are resilient. You need resilience would be one of my things to say to people, and that genuinely people are good and want to help, but maybe things won't go as smoothly as you expect.
I think. If somebody wanted to move to Colombia, I would say, be interested. Will probably be the first thing. Be interested in where you're going to be, because everything is going to be different. Nothing's going to be the same if you're going from whichever country. Nothing's ever going to be the same as if you lived in the UK or France or Thailand or wherever. So you need to go with no preconceptions, really, and be prepared to learn about where you're going and also about yourself as well. Because, when I first came here, I spent the first year crying. I came to Colombia, I had no Spanish knowledge. I had no real idea what to expect. It was just, as I've mentioned during the podcast, sometimes I kind of fly by the seat of my pants, and I arrive and I thought, I've got no idea what I'm going to do. But the more you invest in it, and the more you invest in finding about people, you're interested in people, you find out about the culture, then the more you're going to get out of it and learn about yourself. The image. I'm glad you said immigrant, because I also use immigrant. I am an immigrant here. I'm not an expat. And I think that expat image of, I'm going to go somewhere and live in a nice kind of gated community and, live life as I lived in another country. I don't think that's the idea. I think if you're going to go somewhere, you go and you integrate and you find out who people are, why they are as they are, and you try and form part of a community. And so I would say that it's about being part of a community, about how you can be of service to that community as well and to that country, because ultimately people like you and I are ambassadors of the places we grow up. We're privileged in many ways, and I don't think we should ever forget that. We should, I'm very grateful to have had this opportunity to be here, to have met the people I've met, to have had the support that I've had, so I think that, or those things, would probably be very nice.
Okay, well, I think that's wonderful, and I think you're right there. It's that you get as much as you put in and invest. And I'm not saying financially, but there will always be an economic investment. But I think, again, the emotional side, the personal, social side. I want to ask you again, could you just promote your Tuwa Shima? Where do we look? Do we just put Tuwa Shima into Google, or or Airbnb? How do we find you?
Okay, yes. In Google, if you look for Tuwa Shima Santuario.
Tuwa Shima Sanctuary.
then you can find information, all the things for Airbnb will come up. Also, we're in Instagram, the same thing, and Facebook, in Airbnb as well. And I'm still building our website after all this time. Imagine, after all this time, I'm still working on the website. But yes.
Well, hang on a second. Surely your kid's Gen Z now. Surely he knows how to do it.
Yeah, probably so. Probably I'll be contacting him to do that. So yeah.
Oh, well, excellent. Well, it's so nice to hear from you after so long, Lorna. And I think that, your successes will continue. Of course, there are challenges along the way, but that's life. And it's how we respond to these challenges, that what we get out of them, I think, in the end. And it's so good to hear. One moment or another, we'll get out there and see some UFOs from your property. It is so fascinating out there and so very beautiful. So I think it's no more other thing to say than congratulations on this path that you've taken, and thank you for sharing it with us.
No, thank you, Richard. Thank you for your time, and it's been great also, and you're always welcome.
Thank you again. So we've been talking to Lorna, who's out there in Tabio. Look up Tuwa Shima Sanctuario, and you'll find out where she lives and how you can rent a yurt or a cabin and connect with the energy of the region of Tabio. So I know, how far are we? 40 minutes from Bogotá, more or less? Traffic
pending, about 40 minutes from Bogotá. Also, if you don't have transport, the floaters from Bogotá pass the front of the finca, so it's very easy to get to.
Very easy indeed. Well, there you have it on this week's Colombia Calling podcast. Thank you again to Lorna for her time and her information. For those of you wishing to support us, just go to patreon.com/Colombia Calling. And of course, we are on all of the podcast links and on YouTube for those of you who go over there as well. So thank you for listening and goodbye.